Recently, a viewer asked, why are so many of your videos about negative stories? Can't you do something a bit more positive? Well, I thought it was an interesting question. Firstly, I do make videos about positive economic news, but YouTube is much less likely to show them to you. I'll explain why this is later. But to start off with, at the moment, the economic outlook is genuinely pessimistic. There are real economic problems and crises. It's hard to put a positive spin on falling real wages, recession, inflation, and a cost of living crisis. But the big question is, why do YouTube videos have a tendency towards crisis and collapse? Let me explain. Last summer I made a good video, Problems of a Chinese Economy. It got around 1,000 views, which I thought was okay at the time. But then, when I looked on YouTube search, I saw some other videos, Chinese economic collapse, which had over 1 million views. And when I watched these videos, I started to realize YouTube were rewarding clickbait type headlines. And if I might just take a little detour, the idea that the Chinese economy is going to collapse is absurd. True, there are real problems, and there's a real crisis in the property market, but the real Chinese crisis is that economic growth is much less than in the past. There's going to be no collapse. And let me just briefly show you a graph to highlight the UK economy since 1800. We can see the slump after the First World War, the Great Depression, the 1970s oil price crisis, etc. But the point is, despite these crises, living standards continued to improve significantly. And China will go through something similar, setbacks but no collapse. So as a YouTube creator, you soon learn that the click-through rate is incredibly important. This is the percentage of people who click on a thumbnail that you see on the homepage. Last November, I made a video, Good Economic News, that you've probably not heard about. 5 reasons to be hopeful. This video I thought was very good, and it had a click-through rate of 4%, which in YouTube terms is quite poor. Therefore, YouTube did not want to show this video to many users. After 6 months, the video got 1,600 views. It doesn't even matter if you have a lot of subscribers. If people don't click, they stop showing. Now compare this to a more successful video I made at pretty much the same time. And the title was UK Housing Crash 2023. Are prices set to fall? Now this immediately got a click-through rate of over 10%. So YouTube started sharing the video to a much wider audience. And after a similar time period, it had notched up 400,000 views, which of course is a huge variation. And it shows that we are perhaps much drawn to the prospect of falling house prices than reasons to be hopeful about the future. Now, what about the economics of making a YouTube video? I love economics and I like making videos, but the truth is they are very time consuming, maybe 12 hours per video. And as a rough rule of thumb, 1,000 views will make you £3. The first video on reasons to be hopeful made me a £5, which is an hourly rate of around 40 pence. And you don't need to be an economist to work out that's not a good hourly rate. By contrast, if you get 100,000 views, you can make over £300, a good hourly rate. Now I should add that click-through rate is not everything. The video also has to be good and keep viewers engaged. But if you have a low click-through rate, this video will soon become hidden by YouTube, and so there's less incentive to make them. So generally, videos on economic crisis and potential collapse all trigger our brain to be curious or fearful, and so therefore we are more likely to click on them. And so YouTube are more likely to recommend them, and so content creators are more likely to make them. So it's like a self-reinforcing loop. Now there is a danger that if there's a financial motivation to make videos about crisis, you can start to cherry-pick data to fit a certain narrative. I could, if I forced myself, make a video about a Chinese economic collapse, which would be very unbalanced and cherry-picking data. In the last video I made about the UK housing market, I looked at reasons why prices are likely to fall, but also towards the end of the video looked at the factors which will prevent a collapse, because some factors are actually pushing up prices whilst others are pushing them down. It's not straightforward. Clickbait is good, but in the long term, most people want a fair, unbiased summary based on facts. However, I would like to make one confession about a video I made about the costs of Brexit last year. In this video, I quoted a statistic from Mark Carney, the former governor of the Bank of England. In the FT, he claimed in 2016, UK GDP was 97% of Germany. But in 2022, after Brexit, it had fallen to 70%. And this looks a spectacular decline in GDP. But I agree the statistic is misleading, because it stems from a relative decline in the pound. He'd compared it in dollar terms, which doesn't reflect the actual growth rates measured in PPP. Becomes a little technical, but I should have been more wary about using this statistic. I actually started this YouTube channel back in 2009, probably even before Google owned it, and I had quite a few embarrassingly low quality videos from a technical point of view, but we actually got quite a few views. But then I did nothing for 13 years. Perhaps I thought there was no future in YouTube, little did I know. But anyway, in the past 12 months, I've enjoyed the process of making videos and working what works on this platform. I have to admit that I started off planning to make videos explaining economic concepts. But the YouTube algorithm has imperceptibly moved me onto making more topical videos, especially about the big challenges facing the world economy. The good news is that I find this very interesting and enjoyable, and hope this enthusiasm comes across. So in the future, I will definitely be choosing good YouTube titles which attract clicks. But I will try to keep the content unbiased and fact-based as much as humanly possible, because of course we all have our inbuilt biases. Now, talking about economic crisis, why not try this video on why the global economy is heading towards a deep recession? And if you're fed up with all the bad news, do check out the video on all the good economic news you've probably not heard about before.